Fox Sports college football analyst Bruce Feldman back here on the Rich Eisen Show. Bruce, what do you think about tonight's game? What do you think here?
I picked Clemson in the preseason. I'm sticking with it,
Look
Rich.
at you.
I'm actually even more confident in Clemson than I was a week ago.
Why is that?
I think, Deshaun Watson lit this Alabama defense, or a lot of these guys, up last year, and that was without Mike Williams, who's their best receiver. He missed most of the last season with a neck injury. He's back. Alabama's traditionally struggled against really good dual-threat quarterbacks, but also against guys with big receivers. We saw whether it was Mike Evans at Texas A&M or Laquan Treadwell at Ole Miss. And their philosophy is basically, you're not going to grind out a 10 and 12 and a 15-play drive against Alabama, but you can hit them with some big shots. Also, they're really good up front defensively. Now, I don't think they're quite as good in the secondary as Washington was. They're more aggressive, and they're more physical, and they're more talented than the Huskies were. And I definitely think Deshaun Watson's a lot better than Jake Browning. And I'm curious to see how Jalen Hurts, the Alabama's true freshman quarterback, is going to hold up. I mean, at some point, I think they're going to have to make some more plays downfield against this team, and we'll see if he can do it. I'm not so sure.
Well, what about the Sarkisian aspect of this? The fact that he's now calling the plays. Does that mean a bunch of Bo Scarborough? Is that what that means, Bruce?
Yeah, maybe it means it more than that than if Lane was doing it, because Lane seemed to be early on reluctant to just feed the guy. People forget that, or a lot of people forget that Sark has coached in huge games and national title games and has been a play caller and everything. I don't think he's going to get nervous. But, it was interesting the other day when he has to do media, the media day, and he's getting asked all these questions that are USC related just because of, the very public circumstances of his private life. And I thought he handled it well, and how he addressed it just from a standpoint of his biggest objective there wasn't to please anybody necessarily in the media, guys like us. It was more, you know what, I'm going to be honest, but I'm also going to try to make sure I do not create any more distraction or become the story, much the way Lane Kiffin was last week.
And so how does it all come out in the wash tonight on the offensive side of the football for Alabama, Bruce?
Well, he's got the challenge because he's got the quite honestly, Jalen Hurts had said he really didn't even know who Steve Sarkisian was when he got there, or for much of the year, because Steve Sarkisian could, be involved in film breakdown and the game planning, but when it came to actually the coaching the players as an analyst in that role, you're not allowed to do it. So it's been a little bit of a crash course to establish those relationships. I think his biggest challenge isn't going to be just getting back into the swing of things, being the play caller from the field. I think his biggest challenge is going to be Clemson's defensive line is really, really good, and it's better than anything Alabama's seen this year outside of what they see at practice every day.
Bruce Feldman, Fox Sports, joining us. I assume you're in Tampa for the game tonight, correct?
I am. I'm here for about 5 days.
Oh, my gosh. Wow, 5 whole days down there in Tampa, Florida, getting set for this big game. So in the conversations that you've heard outside of this game, the fact that there were 2 non-competitive college football semifinals, and we saw a Rose Bowl like we did between USC and Penn State. Florida State played well against Michigan, which played well without its top 2 players on offense and defense. Is there a conversation about changing the way that the teams that are selected to get into the Final Four? Has there been any conversation about looking and taking stock with what happened over the last several weeks here, Bruce?
Not at this point, Rich. I think really that's a discussion we in the media have kicked around, but from what I've heard, it's really not a discussion that the power brokers of the sport are looking at. I think, I don't want to say it was fluky because it wasn't the way Ohio State got blown out by Clemson. But I don't think anybody really saw that coming. I think there were people who picked Clemson to win. Nobody expected them to shut. Urban Meyer's team had never been shut out. So I don't think that, I think what we have here is the 2 best teams in college football, and they're the most talented tems, and that's how we've gotten. I'm not sure if Penn State played in the playoff, yeah, they probably would have scored more points than Washington, but I think they would have probably given up a lot more points than Washington. And you put some of those other teams, Florida State, like you said, Michigan was a little depleted by that point too. I just think that both of these teams would have handled those other teams pretty convincingly as well.
And what about the idea that those would have been two pretty damn good quarterfinal playoff games too?
Yeah, no, look, I'm somebody who wouldn't mind seeing an 18 playoff because I don't love the idea of, the kind of, I don't call it blind choosing, but you're talking about your 5-power conference leagues. Why not have each one get a bid and then you get 3 at-large bids? The problem with that is the season is already long enough now. It keeps getting longer in college football. It's longer than it was, 5 years ago. It's certainly longer than it was 10 years ago. It's not like they're getting paid. The only ones who are, getting paid are the TV networks who put it on and the coaches and the players aren't. And there's more worried about injury risk and everything else. And when you talk to players, they can't imagine playing another game after this. So they got to find a way to shorten the regular season, which I don't think the ADs would go for because that means money out of their pocket to say go back to 11 games instead of 12 or not having a conference title game. People don't want to give up that money even if they think they may get money on the back end. So it's an interesting problem, and I don't know if there's an easy solution for them on it.
Bruce Feldman joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. Do we just pencil or Sharpie Chip Kelly in Berkeley? What do you think, Bruce?
No, I don't even think we put it in air. I think it's a long shot that I think Chip would end up in Berkeley. A couple of things. So the timing of this, from what I'm told, had nothing to do with Chip's availability. Chip Kelly, if he decided he was going to sit out this year and sort out, everything going forward and maybe, do a little TV or something and visit some schools, like he's connected at a lot of different places, he would get a much better job than Cal, 10 or 11 months from now. I mean, Cal has a lot of positives, but the downside is it's simply not committed to college football at the highest level. Certainly nothing like these two schools, Clemson-Alabama, but nothing like USC or some of the other top schools in their own conference. So I think Chip Kelly knows that. I don't think, he would take it.
So what do you see open in 10 or 11 months? I mean, obviously there's always an unknown factor. What tea leaves could he be reading to say that there's a better gig down the line for him?
Oh, I just think every year, even this year, Cal was not the best job that has come open. I wouldn't even say it's one of the 3, in the top 5. So whether Notre Dame comes open or UCLA comes open or Texas A&M comes open or wherever, Tennessee, there's going to be plenty of big jobs that I think will come open. I think Chip Kelly will be the top guy on a lot of people's wish list because he's a brilliant offensive mind, but also he was such an innovator beyond just the X and O's at Oregon. And he is a guy where I think a lot of guys would, I think it would be a big selling point to say, hey, this is an interesting brand of football we're going to bring. I know for some people it didn't go well at the end and certainly with the 49ers, but if you put them in college football with the hash marks the way they were, different hash marks and the difference in speed across the board, I think it would be a very, very compelling situation for a lot of big money boosters to see him out there.
And last one over the next week, as NFL jobs get filled, any chance we see a big name from college maybe pop free and then that's where Chip would slide in, or forget about Chip Kelly? The fact that there's all these job opens. What are you hearing about college coaches taking one of these NFL gigs that's still open?
Obviously, everybody loves David Shaw. I don't think he's leaving. James Franklin's a terrific coach. We saw what he did at Penn State. There's been interest in him before. I could see somebody try to kick the tires on him, but I know, he likes the direction of things at Penn State and what they've started to build. They have a really young team, but he's proven to be a great coach. So maybe some interest in him. I wonder if there'd be a little bit of interest in Mike McIntyre, who's been the National Coach of the Year. Remember, he was the guy who coached under Bill Parcells in the NFL. And it was also Colorado. I feel like they had a senior loaded team. If he was going to jump, this would probably be a decent time for him to jump. So he's a very well-respected guy in football circles. Those are the names that most come up to that kind of come into my mind when I think the guys who might do it.
And so you're saying one last thing for you, Bruce. Tonight, we're watching Dabo Swinney hoist the trophy and pick confetti out of his hair. You think that's going to go?
It's the one thing Clemson has not done. He's built it from, before people were making jokes about Clemsoning and a derogatory term that was, and they put that to rest a few years ago. And got, they put Steve Spurrier and beat them and did everything they can. This is the one thing they haven't done. They were close last year. I think tonight they get over the top.
Bruce, thanks for calling. Come back when you come back to L.A. Let's have sort of a college football exit interview, and then now we'll be talking about talent evaluating with Mitch Trubisky going number 1 overall, et cetera, et cetera. And I know you're locked in on the quarterback position. That's for sure.
Yeah, can't wait. Thanks, Rich.
You got it. That's Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports joining us here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.